I'm Andy Koffke. I'm from North Wales, Pennsylvania. I am an architectural engineering major, fifth-year student, and I am the operations director. It was Thanksgiving about 5 years ago, and I had a cousin that went here, and we talked throughout Thanksgiving, and the last words she left me were, "You need to join THON," and I had no idea what that meant. And so coming here, I had done music my whole life, and I didn't fall into music because I'm an engineering major and kind of just studied a lot, and ended up finding THON through one of the fairs, student involvement fairs and whatnot. So I joined a committee just on a whim, ended up making my best friends that I met here on that first committee, and carried through to my next committee as well. And from first committee to that committee, I wanted more responsibility, so I immediately joined and became our canning coordinator, and took on more responsibility that year. Had a really great relationship with my first two captains, and knew at that point that I wanted to be a captain the next year. I wanted that responsibility and that ability to inspire people just as I had been inspired. So like everyone else, I've had my own family battles with cancer, and so this really hit home with me joining this cause. And so after taking my role and applying for a captain, I was given a captain on the operations committee. And I've actually been on the operations committee now for 5 years since then. So captain the first year, I was in charge of mopping logistics my first year, coordinating that for THON weekend. And then last year, I was in charge of all supply logistics. So working with the SL committee throughout the year and acquiring, transporting all the supplies for every pre-THON event and THON weekend. And last year, I really wanted to take on even more responsibility, having 21 captains that I could look to for anything and everything I ever wanted. And I challenged them this year. When I was interviewing them, I really wanted people to help me think differently. After 5 years, you kind of notice the same trends. As we grow as an organization, as we grow as a committee, I want people to come in here and challenge me. Be like, why do we do that? Do we have to do it that way? And so that's what they've done this year. All 21 of them have been awesome, and it's been the best experience of my life being the operations director. As the operations director, it's actually probably one of the hardest things I've had to do in my life, because the operations committee in particular is not a committee that needs this huge project to be revamped. We are a very efficient machine at this point, so it's finding those little cracks, those little things that you can tweak that make us run even more efficiently and smoothly throughout the entire year. And so coming from the supply logistics side last year on the committee, something that's kind of more behind the scenes, something that is oftentimes underappreciated. People think the supplies magically appear here and there. I wanted to turn our committee into more of a business-like model, where you have a supply logistics forecast and you take previous years' numbers, quantities, and you analyze them mathematically. Coming from an engineering background, I understand this to a certain extent, wanting to forecast the supplies. And so I'm trying to develop that with my supply logistics captain this year, working with that committee as well, and really developing, a more sophisticated way of doing this, as opposed to just, a shot in the dark. We need 5 more boxes than last year. Because between the fluctuating numbers here and there every year, I'd rather have a mathematical way of approaching it. Being on the operations committee, not just the supply side, but just the committee in general, it is usually behind the scenes. And so I've had little interaction with the kids, the families, the emotional side my first 2 years as a committee member, really up until THON weekend. That was the first chance I got. And then as a captain, one of my favorite memories in the world is just taking a minute in the South Annex and just playing with this child. A hat on, way too big for his head, and just rolling a ball back and forth. I had probably 1,000,001 things to be doing at that point. And that was the best part. But stepping aside, from the emotional side and separating from that side, I really do think mathematically and operationally, it's just what I've known in this organization. When I was scrolling through the list as a freshman, I wanted to, associate myself and be a part of something that I really wanted to do. And I've always been a hard worker, and I've always thought that way, logistically, planning things. And so that's what I've been working towards, and that's why I found myself in this position. I oversee 21 captains, and they are essentially all in charge of planning the logistics of the setup and teardown process of all pre-THON and THON events. So that includes the supplies acquisition, transportation at each event, as well as all the little nitty-gritty details. You know, like I said, we run very efficiently every year. And so it's like taking the plan from previous years and really like hammering out the details of what went right, mostly, you know, and what really went wrong, and, you know, fixing that for this year. So in a nutshell, we are, you know, responsible for all the logistical matters behind the setup and teardown. Even in our events, it's just planning for, you know, having the families there to speak to all of the committee members and just seeing their faces light up. Like, it's not every day that they get to hear the stories and have the interaction with the kids. And last year as a captain, I had the opportunity to have a pen pal, and that was definitely my motivation all year. Having that association with a family and a child and his little brother as well, that was just magical. I mean, like having that experience at the family carnival and then THON weekend, and having the ability to introduce my own committee of like 37 individuals to that child and give that child, you know, the best night, the best weekend of his life. It was definitely the most magical moment. Power of the Dreamers really hit home with me when we first were going through the process and, you know, we're deciding on the theme for this year. I love the word empower because it really, I don't know, it fires me up, to be honest. And I'm the type of person that really, truly feels that passion. And I've always used the word energy within THON. There's just, I'm getting chills talking about it right now. Like, there's just this energy. And so empower just hits home with that whole concept of like really giving these kids, giving these families, the volunteers, everyone, that ability and that knowledge that we are changing the world, you know, one little ding at a time. And obviously, you know, the kids are the dreamers. We are also the dreamers, but I think the focus obviously is on them, you know, having the ability to dream forward and really, you know, have a future in this. And that's what our ultimate goal is. I'm the most excited just to see my captains operate. You know, after all the hard work we've put into the 5K and Family Carnival and just now touching upon THON weekend, I am beyond excited to see all of these plans, all of this hard work, all of my hard work, you know, this entire year just finally culminate into THON weekend. I am so excited for that. So I touched upon the setup and teardown process and, you know, the logistics behind that, but I also have an additional captain that plans THON weekend out, the actual weekend, in an increment of every 5 minutes, of where every single captain, all 21 of us, and 22 of us for that matter, myself included, need to be, and what tasks we do. So we are in charge of maintaining the cleanliness and the safety of the building, really. So that includes, you know, trash sweeps throughout the portals to make sure all the trash through the building is maintained, the recycling. Something that I'm really pushing forward this year is the recycling effort and, you know, moving towards a zero waste organization. And that's something that we did after a football game. We went and sorted all the recycling from that game. We did it at the 5K. We will be doing it, you know, for the rest of the remainder of the year here. And so I think, you know, from that standpoint, we also help to run the logistics of the weekend itself and maintaining the building. Some of our more fun events, I would say, our glory events, are, they're called Slides of Strength. And it's the only opportunity that the dancers have a chance to leave their feet, you know, and actually get like a 5 to 10 second massage on the mats that we roll out. It's a big wrestling mat that it says THON across it. We bring in, I can't even tell you how many bottles of baby powder, and we just, you know, it's one of our most fun events, and everyone's involved. It's on the floor, all leading up to our giant Slides of Strength, right, in the final 8 hours. And that's the most fun. That's right in the center of the floor. That's when baby powder is flying, you know, everything else on the floor is occurring, and there's just this mass amount of people just watching all these dancers and these groups go across the mat. And I think, you know, it's moments like that, watching the kids be able to slide down, watching the dancers, that it's like, we did it, you know. Final 8 hours, here we go.